And understand that when I represent clients in the military, the goal we would all like to have is to be acquitted of charges, but sometimes the evidence and the facts and the circumstances don't allow for that. So the next level of defense for someone who cannot be acquitted under the evidence is to achieve the best possible outcome in the circumstances. So what we're aiming for Lieutenant Colonel Lakin is I'm hopeful that I can convince the jury on Tuesday or Wednesday of next week to let him go home with it and spend the holidays with his family and not send him to jail. I think that's a possible outcome. Now, what I don't have any control over is who may or may not have influenced, either directly or indirectly, the members of the jury who are going to sit in judgment of him. I can try to ascertain that through the jury selection process, but that relies on people being honest. So I can never guarantee an outcome, but I can always tell you that, we go into these battles with the idea that we're going to achieve the best possible outcome that can be achieved by anyone under the circumstances. So really, what I would like for people who support Lieutenant Colonel Lakin, I would like them to shift their fires towards what happens to him after the court-martial, because if he loses his career in the Army, if by losing his career in the Army, his career as a doctor is also put into jeopardy, he still has to provide for his family financially. True. So if people who want to support him would turn to those around them and think in terms of supporting him, his family personally, financially, or whatever. I've heard you talking in the segment before about people donating just a little money. I'm not soliciting money for his defense. That's not the point here. The point is Lieutenant Colonel Lakin and his family need to be looked after, because if he is viewed as a hero by some for taking a stand, and he has to suffer because of that, then people need to think, well, what is it? Since he did that for me, what can I do for him?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, this man is sacrificing everything, his career, his his pension, everything, his retirement, everything he loves and holds dear for America, because he's taking a stand, and America needs to take a stand behind them. We'll have to try and figure out something for that. Now, it's also important for folks to understand that, he's taking responsibility for his decisions. He's not blaming them on anybody else or saying, I got bad advice or anything like that. He acknowledges responsibility for the decisions that he made, and he's made them courageously. So he's sort of engaging in what we call classic civil disobedience. He's saying, look, I am acting in accordance with my conscience. My conscience will not let me do this, unless I find out certain information. But he also knew from the very beginning that could cause him personal harm, but he was willing to assume that risk. And that's true courage. That's moral courage. It's physical courage, and you have to admire him for that. Oh, I do. That's one of the reasons why you're on the show. Because you know me, it's all about the uniform. And when I first heard about the case, it was like, what, is this guy nuts? And then I looked into it a little bit more and went, dang, this guy is taking a stand.
Right.
He is being a true officer. He is the true leader as an officer that my father used to talk about. He's willing to take his brass off his shoulders, slap it on the table and say, I'm taking care of my troops. You want us to go where? Show us legitimacy.
Right.
Because, it's right. Why have these guys, like you said earlier, why have these guys and gals have to prove who they are again?
Yes.
But yet, the guy that is paying $3 million to prevent any of his documentation to come forward, if that man was a true leader, he'd open up his passport documentation and say, here's my birth certificate, here's my legitimacy.
Now, what's the reason for not doing that? What's the reason for not doing that?
He's not doing it.
I just don't understand.
Exactly. He's paying so that he doesn't have to do it.
Lieutenant Colonel Lakin is 100% in his rights to demand that, just like anybody else is.
Mm-hmm.
And I commend him for it. I'll do whatever I can to help support him, and try and come up with a plan.
But
you and I. What?
His problem is, of course, though, and I think everybody understands this. He's stuck within a system that doesn't permit him to fully explore that whole issue. So he's stuck in a situation where he has disobeyed military orders. Those orders issued from military authority, and the Army is not allowing him to look beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he's going. That's why he's going to court-martial. He is going to be found guilty of some, but not all of these offenses, I believe. And then he'll be subjected to some kind of punishment. Our job will be to minimize that punishment and allow him to move forward in a way that is not damaging to his family.
Yeah, that's very true. You and I need to come up with a plan. I've already got half a plan. You and I we've had various different back-channel discussions about the UCMJ in the past. We went through this crap the beginning of the year with the guys. We need to get that changed because, it's horrendous when the UCMJ does not uphold the Constitution.
Right.
I mean, the federal rules, it doesn't even uphold the federal rules. The UCMJ is archaic. It's ridiculous. It needs to be abolished. We need to just go under regular federal statute, come up with a few different guidelines. But
when you look at the way, I think the most damaging thing you can say about it is that it is so easily misused by those in power. The system as it's designed can be fair, but that depends on fair commanders and fair generals and admirals who are invoking the system for disciplinary reasons, and they're human and they're subjected to whatever their whims are, and so that's how sometimes it goes to being unfair, like it was for the Navy SEALs. Yeah.
Well, we also got the Leavenworth 10.
Right.
And
look at the young warriors who are now being armchair or Monday morning quarterbacked as to their combat actions when they should have been given a super benefit of the doubt. Basically, everyone acknowledged, as we did in past wars, that collateral damage is a function of war, and our guys can only do as well as their training provides and as well as their equipment works, and their own judgment and their own fears and their own human frailties are going to cause imperfect results in war, and to hold them criminally accountable for that is a crime.
Yeah, it's taxpayers' money being wasted.
You bet.
It's what the bottom line is. I mean, we send these guys to boot camp, we train them to kill, and we send them to combat. We let them do what we train them to do, and then accuse them and convict them of murder without any evidence.
There's no fairness there.
What's wrong with this picture? Michael B. Hanna, Lieutenant Michael B. Hanna, U.S. Army, he's coming up for review. I think the 8th or the 9th of December, just a couple of days from now.
That's right.
He's coming up. I mean, his mom, I don't know if you know the history of his case or not.
I do.
But his mom, his mom is a federal prosecutor. Her and I have had many conversations. She thought the system was going to work. She thought that it was under the federal rule. The UCMJ is throwing them for a loop.
Right.
Because they don't follow federal law.
Well, it's not over. It's not over yet. They're still fighting, and there's still a hope for a good outcome in that case.
Yeah, we're crossing our fingers. We're praying. I know people that are up on the top level, of the Army and for the military, for the UCMJ, the JAG Corps, just as much as you do. We know a lot of the same people. It's kind of hard because I have to be very careful because I know your side and I know them on their side. And it's a matter of trying to get the balance to make sure that the military doesn't get destroyed in the system, but at the same time that the warriors don't get destroyed. we've got to come up with an equal balance.
I think our warriors deserve more protection from the chain of command than they get.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly true.
And returning to Lieutenant Colonel Lakin's case, this was a last resort for him. He had tried other means to get answers to his questions, and no one would even address his question, much less answer it. And I think if Army leadership had taken him seriously and responded to his written request for information, even if it was information he didn't expect to hear or didn't want to hear, they just said, "Well, no, we can't address your question. It's addressed to the wrong place." And no one brought him in and said, "Look, here's the way things are. We're going to seek this answer for you," or anything. He was given no answer at all.
So they basically threw it under the rug. Yeah.
Well, yes, because they didn't want to ask. They didn't want to ask the question.
So they're cowards. Yeah, I've been saying this for a while now. Yeah. I've been saying this for a long time now, and I think you know me well enough to know it takes a lot for me to question somebody's integrity. Mm-hmm. Really, it takes a lot, and I got so fed up with the Leavenworth 10 cases, and the 118 cases inclusive that I read this past year. With all the warriors. Everybody, including Lakin and McCabe and Hurtado and them and O'Keefe, and all the guys that are out in Leavenworth, all of these guys being accused. I got so fed up that I questioned the integrity of every single officer at the Pentagon. Mm-hmm. Everyone that works at the Pentagon. And it takes a lot for me to do that. Yeah. I'm really believing that they have just all become so cowardice and looking after their own butt, their own retirement, their own brass. They're afraid to uphold the oath that they personally took when they first entered into the military. Mm-hmm. Like you said, if they would have turned around and just said, hey, come on in here, Lakin, we need to do a little sit-down, yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. Is this really the way you feel? And then have them champion it. Just send a letter. Freedom of Information Act.
Right.
Letter.
Right.
Or a basic chain of command letter. Mm-hmm. Yes or no. They would have at least done their due diligence, correct?
Exactly. And that's those are the people I hold accountable here, because even if they would have sat him down and said, "Look, well, we're privy to information you're not, and here's the truth, and and this is legitimate, or this is illegitimate, or whatever, then what are you doing about it?" But that nobody wanted to have that discussion.
And yet when people go to the likes of Senator Lindsey Graham, who has the capability of picking up the phone, who also happens to be a JAG officer, in case you didn't know.
Right, he is.
United States Air Force. He could have done this on behalf of not only Lakin, but a half a dozen warriors. Instead, he just says, "Oh, that's the letter of the law. Get out of my office." Mm-hmm. He's going against. He's doing dereliction of duty as being an officer in the military and also as a senator.
Right.
So
if it is a political question, as the military judge has ruled, if it's a political question, why aren't politicians pursuing it?
Exactly. There's a lot more questions that are being raised up in the air tonight here, Neal. Mm-hmm. A lot more. This isn't just about Lakin refusing an order.
Right.
There's a lot more to the bigger picture here.
I know.
And
but I certainly appreciate you taking up his cause, Betty. This has been delightful speaking with you tonight, and I hope we can talk again.
Oh, most definitely. I'll give you a shout tomorrow or the next day, depending on your schedule. And we need to start making some headways. We got a new Congress coming in January. We need to start making some serious headways about doing some changes in that good old UCMJ.
Sure. And maybe Congressman Alan West can help with that.
Oh, I know he will. Between you and I going after him, hey, we'll definitely get him to go. Actually, I talked to him in September about it. he said if he got elected, he'd be more than happy to help. So we're definitely going to be doing some rocking and rolling there.
Well, best of luck to you,
Most
and
definitely.
thank you again for your support.
Oh, anytime, Neal. Anything I can do, no, don't even hesitate to let me know. Thanks a lot,
Great.
and say hi to your partner for me.
Will do. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
You too. Thanks a lot.